Uh, okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. Erace is the slogan of the group Erace, which was formed in New Orleans in the summer of 1993. We seek ways through person-to-person communication to show that we are committed to treating fellow human beings of all colors with love and respect. Join us. Okay. We're going to start off. I'm going to go around and ask everyone to introduce themselves. Just,
Nancy, we need to do the land acknowledgement.
okay, land. Well, yeah, we need some new rules to put that land acknowledgement.
I sent out new rules not too long ago.
Really? Okay, well, I need to look for those. All right, land acknowledgement.
So I want to acknowledge that what we know as the US is the traditional territory of the indigenous peoples. Members of our group today are on the Tonkawan, Lipan Apache, and Comanche in Austin, the Chitimacha in New Orleans, the Creeks and Cherokees in Atlanta, the Lenape and Piscataway in Maryland, the Wampanoag and Nipmuc peoples in Boston, and also to add the Kahlua and Mojave tribes in the Riverside County, California. I want to thank their ancestors for being stewards of these lands through the generations and hope that we can continue this stewardship in the future.
Thank you. Okay, now we will go around and introduce ourselves and give your name and how long you have been attending and where you're located. All right, Phyllis, if you'd start.
My name's Phyllis. I'm in New Orleans and I have been attending since 2008.
Thank you. Marva.
My name is Marva. I'm a retired registered nurse for the state of Louisiana. I've been attending post-Katrina.
Thank you. Michelle. You're still muted.
Sorry, I thought I unmuted myself. I'm Michelle, and I'm coming from Austin, Texas, where I've been a member of Erace since the summer of 2020, introduced to the group by Louise Johnson, who's here, and just wish everybody a happy day. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Marion.
Okay. Yep. Did I unmute?
Yes.
Okay. Can't even see. Good morning again, everyone. I'm Marion Lagarde here in New Orleans in the Gentilly neighborhood. I've been attending Erace discussions since June of 1993. Looking forward to this morning's discussion.
Thank you. Louise.
Hi, I'm Louise. I've been coming to Erace for a couple of decades, first in New Orleans and now in Austin, South Austin.
All right, thank you. Bill.
Bill?
Yeah,
Bill.
I'm Bill Owens, and I'm in New Orleans, and I'm proudly wearing my Erace t-shirt. And I learn something every day. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Nora.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Nora. I'm in North Central Austin, and I've been coming for under a year, I would say. Thanks.
Thank you. Stanton.
Good morning, Stanton, here in a sizzling hot Southwest Austin. I've been a couple of months now. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Becky.
good morning. I'm Becky Richardson. I'm currently in Boston, near Boston, Massachusetts. And I started coming to Erace in 2019 when we were snowbirding in New Orleans. and it's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Pedro,
Hey, good morning. I am west of New Orleans. I'm actually in Spicewood, close to Austin. Anyhow, want to wish everybody a wonderful my mother's birthday, my Mother's Day. So thinking of all you good moms, and glad to be here. Been with Erace, I guess, with Michelle about the same time. I think this is well into my second year.
hey, thank you. Marla,
Good morning. My name is Marla. I'm in the New Orleans area as well, and I've been coming since 2020-ish.
thank you. Larry, you're still muted.
I'm so sorry. I'm Larry,
Okay.
and I started attending the race meetings in the mid-90s, and I'm here in New Orleans.
Thank you. Cindy,
Good morning, everybody. I'm Cindy Morse in New Orleans. We've been coming maybe 4 years. I'm going to look at the calendar and see if I can figure out officially. But I remember hearing about it way back in the 90s when the lady from, oh God, I can't remember her name. The lady from Maple Street Bookstore, Rhoda Faust, was involved. I appreciate sharing with you guys. Thank you.
thank you. Leonetta,
Good morning, everybody. I've been a member of Erace since I was an intern at Southern University.
thank you. Glenn,
Peace be on to everyone. My name is Glenn Abdullah. Been coming to Erace since 1994. Looking forward to today's meeting.
thank you. And Greer,
My name is Greer, and I've been attending the race post-Katrina since about, I guess, 2008, 2009. Go,
All right.
Happy Mother's Day, mothers.
All right, thank you so much. All right. Okay, thank you everyone for introducing yourselves and explain the format of the meeting. You raise your finger to get on the list, wave it around so that I can see it, or you can use the hand signal that's in the down at the bottom. We go in order of the list. Please keep your comments to approximately 2 minutes. Be respectful of the speaker. Mute yourself unless you're speaking. There is a mute button depending on your device, either on the bottom or the top. Sometimes it's on the side. It depends on what device you're using. If you have a question of the speaker, you raise 2 fingers for a clarifying question. A clarifying question consists of, I didn't understand what you meant. Could you please clarify what you meant by? At the end, 15 minutes before the end, we will have a wrap up where everyone gets a minute for their final thoughts. Unless you have not spoken, and you can take your full 2 minutes. Okay, this is an atmosphere of safety. There are no personal attacks and there is no cross talking. Okay. All right, so I think that's it. The reason that I brought the article, okay, Phyllis had to change the article because there it says 21 reasons, and my original article had 11 reasons. So when I pulled it up this morning, there are more reasons or rules than what the original article had. There was 11 of them. But anyway, the reason that I brought the article is that because I had never seen this kind of unspoken rules that Black people have adopted or kind of tend to follow, just as a general everyday going about your business living kind of thing that white people don't have to do. And so I thought that it would be good to bring it as an Erace article and call attention to it. And there are some here that some I have encountered, some I have not. So anyway, I thought it would make for an interesting discussion. So the list is open. Marion. You have to unmute, Marion.
I never hit the little unmute button hard enough. Okay. I was so pleased to see this, first of all, stated, and I even thought of a few more. I won't get into that. But what really sort of raised my hackles was number one, about how Black women are perceived as angry. And I said, well, yeah, we do have a right to be angry. Don't raise your voice, stay calm, or you will be recognized or perceived, that's what I want to say, as the angry Black woman. Now, I've thought about previous years where I've had some unpleasant encounters with people, and I think I told you all, I know I did, I told you all about the time this young white boy followed me in a car and called me a nigger bitch. And I went to his school because he had on his uniform, and I was able to identify him, and he had to come over to my school because I told the principal of this very prestigious Catholic boys' high school that he attended, he had to come and apologize to me. So I didn't raise my voice, but I was angry. And if I had acted on my anger, after all, I was supposed to be a mature, older woman, and this was a 16-year-old kid. And if I put my hands on that child, I would have gone to jail. So you darn tootin' I was angry. I had never been called that in my life. And by a kid too, that's outrageous. So some of this stuff here that's written down is legitimate. You have a right to be angry, and it's too much stuff that Black people on the whole have to go through in order to make it in this world. And I guess right now, because my back and my knee are hurting me so bad, I'm kind of ticked off anyway. So I'm just trying to be frank, and I'm going to be frank, maybe a little bit more so than I usually would. But the stuff that Black people have had to go through to make it in this world is just ridiculous. And I think people need to understand, everybody, the whole world over needs to understand that Black people are human beings. We have feelings. And, you know, a person can take just so much until they get tired of it. And I think because I am older and I've reached the stage in my life where I'm old as dirt, you know, I'm not putting up with that static anymore. And if I have to say something to somebody who,
okay, Marion, would you like to get back on the list?
Okay, I'm going to end the comment in my little comments right now. So if I have to say something,
Louise,
to let somebody know, I'll tell them. I'm all riled up now, but I'll be quiet.
Okay, well, thank you. Okay, Louise is next. Cindy? All right, Louise.
So the conversation, don't know what number it was. By the way, I'm sure there's more than 21, but anyway, the conversation that you have to have with your young Black children, especially boys, rings true as my son is, oh my God, I'm sorry. My son is, his best friend is Black, and they've been friends since kinder. Um, and he has had the conversation, but I've, obviously don't need to really have the conversation with Dylan, who is white looking, and he even says it himself. When he goes out at night, he's 21 now, but when he goes driving, I'm like, be careful. You could get stopped for having your tax run out or whatever, and he's like, yeah, I know, but it's okay, I'm white. So he even feels that the pressure is off because of his white skin. Anyway, that was all really.
Okay. Well, thank you, Louise. Cindy? Unmute.
I
Bill?
taught in a school that was at that point in time about 50-50. And it was pretty balanced in terms of treatment by, I don't know of any teachers, you didn't send your kids there if you were a racist. But it was comforting to see how many people valued the acceptance across racial lines on both sides. I remember a conversation with a Black father at one point, and he was astonished that it never was an issue with my sons, who happen to have the same white skin I do. And he even with very shy daughters, there's differences in what parents say to their kids. There has to be, which is sad. You shouldn't have to fortify your children to go out and talk to neighbors. It's a sad commentary on our culture. Enough.
All right, thank you, Cindy. Bill? Unmute.
Unmute, yeah, I was trying to find it. None of these surprise me, not because I've experienced them myself, but because I read about them.
Greer?
And there's a corollary to this. As a white person, I want to make sure when I encounter and interact with an African-American,
Phyllis?
that I show my respect. Don't do anything that would be interpreted as disrespect. I observed my father in the 50s doing this. When he encountered a Black man, he always, either words, more likely nonverbal cues, that he respected that person and he didn't want to be interpreted as being disrespectful. And one of the things I do when I encounter a Black man, I always use the word sir. I said, excuse me, sir, can I X, or something else like that. And so I feel that there's a responsibility to indicate that I am not disrespecting an African-American. But I don't have to do that when I encountered another white person. It's a sad state that this situation that was described in the article, but I think it's a very important article, and thank you for sharing it, Nancy.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate that. Okay, next is Greer.
Well, if you think about
Becky.
it, this is a throwback to basically survival skills, since African Americans were in captivity in this country. And yes, things have changed, but those skills are still about trying to survive in a world where well, not even the world, in the country. In this country, we are considered a minority, but in the world, we're a majority. You're trying to live, you're trying to function. So basically, it's basically about survival. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Greer. We have Phyllis, Larry, and then Becky. Does anyone else like to get on the list? Marla? Stanton? Thank you. Phyllis, go ahead.
Well, when I read the article, my first response was how exhausting this must be to have that much thought and awareness to every encounter you have, you know, like
Leonetta.
just going in
Right.
a store, thinking about how you have to be perceived and how friendly you have to be so that people don't follow you around and think that you're going to steal things. You okay?
Mhm.
Okay. And the other part, you know, I take lots of walks around this neighborhood. Bill's on one has a finger up. Which is the Garden District of New Orleans. There's lots of big fancy houses, and I take pictures. I stop and take pictures of houses all the time. And sometimes I stop and just look at a house because they're interesting. And half of the houses now have like historical plaques on them. So I think the Garden District's trying to make it look like everybody famous lived here. But maybe a Black person in this neighborhood could get away with it because it's kind of touristy to do that. Lots of people come and take pictures of New Orleans. I don't know. And I live in the neighborhood. So I can always tell people my address if they do challenge me. I had one time I was taking a picture of like a little shotgun and the owner was outside and she kind of looked at me funny and I'm like, oh, I really like the colors of your house. And she's like, oh, thank you. Like at first I think she was like, what's happening? But again, I just think the whole idea of having to prove yourself to be trustworthy and law abiding before the fact would wear me out if I had to do that on a daily basis. And also is why people should be angry. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you,
that.
Phyllis. Next we have Larry. Oh, hold on, Larry. Cindy, do you have a clarifying question? Okay, could you unmute? You have to unmute.
Nancy, do you have me?
Yes, I do. Okay, go ahead.
Phyllis, given the neighborhood you live in, what has been the reaction to whatever that ball player's name is? Zion Williamson. Has there been reaction to his buying house in the Garden District?
I have no knowledge that he has. Where is it?
You know, I just read about it. He's bought a big house for his mama and he lives in the house in the Garden District.
I personally would rather have him in the neighborhood than Nick Cage, but that's just me.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Larry.
I think one of the dangers of this article is that it has a tendency to stereotype Black people.
Yeah.
You know, to think, you know, with the danger being that this is the way all Black people think. Some of these things are just, you know, common sense, human reactions, and not necessarily Black people's reaction. You know, like the first one and the one Marion addressed it, you know, about Black women being perceived as an angry Black woman. Excuse me, what's wrong with being angry? You know, anger is a human emotions. So you don't have to hide your anger, no matter if you're Black or white. And number two says, my mother taught me to always ask for a bag and a receipt. Well, that's common sense, you know, when you shop. And another says, my father taught me when pulled over by the police to pull your insurance and registration out of the glove compartment and keep it ready. Well, that goes contrary to a lot of popular opinions. And I used to teach DWI and DUI, safe driving course. And, you know, the clients that used to come to me, I used to always tell them to make sure you keep your hands on the steering wheel until you ask to reach
Michelle.
the glove compartment. So I think that's the danger of trying to link all 21 of these things to a Black perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Next we have Becky.
I think that the towns that are described as being really dangerous at night, if you're a driver of color, that's horrifying. And I guess I didn't realize until joining this group that the police are consistently, I would call it misbehaving, or consistently badgering drivers of color. I think that must be very hard. It's a very hard way to live, to be always afraid that the police are going to chase you. And since they're kind of fairly free about how they use the gun, you might be killed. So I thought that, you know, the description of that was more peaceful than it must feel when you're Black and driving at night in a town that's questionable, or just driving in any case if there are police around. So I'm sorry that that's the way it is.
Thank you, Becky. We have Marla, Stanton, Leonetta, Glenn, Bill, Michelle, and Phyllis. Is there anyone else? Now Larry would like to be on the list. Okay, Marla.
Yeah, first I just wanted to address the anger one, that number one, that certainly I think Black women are a million times more likely to be told not to be angry, but that all women are told they shouldn't be angry or take up space with anger, right? So, you know, we've all been told as women that it's not okay to express our anger, to share it with others, and certainly we're struck down frequently by men when we're too angry. So that's number one. The other thing I just wanted to say, my overall impression of the whole article, it just struck me as how we need to have more empathy for each other again. And that without empathy, I really truly feel we are doomed, you know, and that this is a call to action for white folks, especially, to gather your people. We need to gather our people, white friends, you know, call them in, get them curious, get ourselves continuing to be curious about what other people's experiences are, and then bringing those things into action. I read one place, you know, where like the pseudo white awakening of 2020, right? What did we all do? We joined book clubs, you know, and then, or we followed people on social media, and then we suddenly unfollowed people. And our interest and our drive, it was all performative, right? So this is I think a call to action for white folks. Gather your people, get your people together, and do some actionable things to make lives easier for people of color. You know, we have the ability to make an impact that way, and to stop being so apathetic and lacking in empathy. And that's it.
Thank you, Marla. I really echo your sentiments. We need to make that apparent to the Supreme Court. Stanton, you're next.
I just want to expand this also a little bit. I completely understand everything that was on that list and what people have to do in their lives before they walk out their front door, and how they have to think about their circumstances and surroundings. I do also want to say, my husband and I have been together for nearly 42 years now. And I can tell you that I still will not do any public displays of affection with him. I would not hold his hand publicly. I would not kiss him just like a congratulatory anniversary kiss in a restaurant. We're also very cautious and careful about not going to some place that's a bed and breakfast travel environment, because you never know who owns that bed and breakfast and what their feelings are going to be about two men going back to the same room. So there are those of us too who have to think about our behavior and how we act, that I'm going to say this, all you straight people take for granted, and don't think twice about having to worry about holding someone's hand or giving someone a light kiss in public. So I just want to broaden it a little bit. I am totally empathetic to everything else that's on that list, and want everyone in this group to also feel some empathy towards what it's like to not be straight, or in the alternative, to be gay. So that's it.
Thank you, Stanton. Thank you. I completely agree. Leonetta.
Yes,
Leonetta? Oh, there
I
she is.
just like to make some comments about the list. I've never seen it in print, but Miriam, I've had that list. Oh, she's not even here. But I've been told that list just about practically all my life. And I've had a coworker, she had twin sons, and we worked in an office building. And that situation about the elevator, it happened to her sons. They were in high school, and they came and questioned their mom about it when once they got into the office. That this lady got off the elevator, wouldn't get on the elevator when she saw them, and that had never happened to them. So it is it's prevalent. I also want to say about the sundown cities. I hope everybody on the call understand what that is. Harringham was one of those places until the 1900s, I think. They finally took the Klan symbol off of their welcome to Harringham sign. So also across the river, West Wego was one of those sundown towns, and also Baker, Louisiana. So those are the towns that I was familiar with, that I knew I had to be out when sundown came. I had to be gone.
Okay, thank you, Leonetta. Next we have Glenn. Well, there's Glenn, Bill, Michelle, Phyllis, and Larry. Anybody else like to be on the list? Okay, Glenn.
Well, some of these things are far outdated. Like this sundown town, you don't want to be caught in this town. Can anybody name me a town today that you don't want to be caught in at the dark? Can anybody? I tell you one town I don't want to be caught in, that's New Orleans at the dark. I want to be inside. And it's not because of the Klan or Chicago. So all this, that stuff is just stuff that people are relating from the past. And then they think about no one expects a Black woman to be smart. You don't have TV if you don't see all them smart women on TV analyzing, reporting the news, science. One of the women who came up with the Moderna shot, she was a Black woman. Stacy, who that woman was getting all the votes in Atlanta. All these Black, Michelle Obama. So she should have really read this and understood what she's putting in here. That no one expects a Black woman to be smart. And something else. Oh yeah. Somebody didn't teach me this as a child. Don't get on the elevator along with a white woman. I get on the elevator all the time with white women. And I've never been, look, I've been a cab driver. I've been driving white women at night in my cab, or I do Uber now. So I mean, some of this stuff is fear. not based on rational logic. All right, that's it.
Oh, perfect timing, Brian. Perfect timing. Bill,
First of all, I want to congratulate Stanton on 42 years of being with his partner and his husband and offering the perspective of a gay person. I think this applies to, these issues apply to anyone who's outside the norm, but especially to Black people, because they're more easily identified as being outside the norm. I had a taste of this. I'm not trying to compare it at all. In the 60s, I was a hippie and had long hair and a beard. And we had to be very careful about what we did, especially crossing the border from Canada. We were going back and forth to Canada a bit then. And we had to be careful that the customs guys didn't plant drugs on us so they could arrest us. So we had to be very, very watchful of what we did and how we interact with people. Again, I'm not comparing it because all we had to do was cut our hair and shave our beard and we would be accepted again. And that's not a prerogative of Black people. So it's a sad state that people have to, and it must be incredibly exhausting, as someone said, to have to be ever watchful. Thank you.
thank you, Bill. Okay, do you have a picture of that long hair and that beard from the 60s? Next we have Michelle.
Yeah, I can echo what Bill said too earlier about none of these being a surprise, because I've read about them now for a couple of years, ever since I opened my eyes to a lot of what was going on around me and finally started educating myself on everything. So I've come across many of these before. And of course, it reminds me again of something that we've talked about, which is Peggy McIntosh's study done back in 1989 about unpacking the white privilege backpack. And the first time I read that was really eye-opening for me about all the privileges that I have as a white person. So that certainly was one of my first initiations into the whole, I guess, phenomenon of what Black people experience on a daily basis and have. And as I always do with articles like this, I always have to read the comments. So, you know, that was an interesting deep dive into some people's perspective as well. I was pleasantly surprised by the majority of positive comments on there from a lot of people that outed themselves as white people about, you know, how horrible it is, and their empathy there, as Marla mentioned, that certainly was surprising to me, because more often than not, the comments are pretty much vitriol of hatred piling on, and there were some of that. And then on to Glenn's comment about the sundown towns, there was an anecdote in there in regards to current day sundown towns, and so, you know, I've Googled that as well, because that was one of the surprising things to me. That was something that I learned from this. I did not realize that there were some sundown towns in operation still. And apparently there are. So if you want to Google that, I'm sure you'll come up with a wealth of information there on that particular topic to say that, no, that's not something that's not been, you know, a relic of the past. It is still happening in places around the country. So I was most surprised when I did that to find out that I think it was one of the defund the police coalitions in San Antonio, Texas, outed San Antonio as a place like that, based on just the fact that you could get pulled over by the police, the percentage of times you could get pulled over by the police after dark in San Antonio, Texas, which is a huge city here in the United States. So anyway, just a little perspective.
I got a
Okay.
question on Axel.
Yes, go ahead.
Do you know what a sundown town means?
Yeah, so back in it was when it was really more of a thing. Black people should not be in the town after dark, basically. Otherwise, you could get I know a lot of places you could get lynched for being out in the open after dark in those towns.
So tell me a town that's like that.
Well, I think you're going to have to Google it because I can't give you specifics. I just said San Antonio was outed as that just because of the fact that the police were more likely to arrest you if you were a Black person after dark, according to this one coalition. But when you go and you Google it, there are places that have been, there's articles been written about it in the last couple of years about which places there are travel advisories to people of color not to go to at night.
Thank you. Next, we have Phyllis, and then we have Larry. Anyone else like to get on the list? Stanton. Okay, thank you. Phyllis.
First, I hope and pray that this country is about to see a lot of very angry women out on the streets, disrupting normal business and raising holy hell, because that is what it's going to take to maintain our bodily autonomy as American citizens. Second, I want to thank Stanton for your broadening the perspective of this discussion. I appreciate every time you do that. This article really does point out what privileges white people have. For instance, I was never told to always get a receipt and ask for a bag in a store. No, my mom never told me that. I was never accused of stealing something when I walked out of a store without a receipt or a bag. Nowadays, I just have most places email me my receipts or text them to me. And yeah, if stopped, I could pull it up, but I don't have paper in hand all the time, except for at Walmart. Yeah, I just think I wish people were on here who disagree that there is white privilege, because I think if they read this list and saw everything they don't have to do as white people, it might open their eyes a little bit. Thanks.
Thank you, Phyllis. Next we have Larry, then Stanton, then Greer. And Louise.
Okay. Thanks again. But, Marla mentioned something about, white people making life. Marla mentioned something about white people, making life easier for people of color. People of color don't need no one to make their life easier, and I think we have to be careful that we don't tend to, to condescend as to think that, and a lot of times some of these discussions take that route as to give the impression that Black people are just helpless people. Almost like Black people, we have a tremendous Black middle class in America, a tremendous Black middle class in America. And so that's why when we take these 21 things, we could take them out of context. And when we try to apply them as being the Black experience, I think that's very dangerous. And, Phyllis just mentioned about she hopes there's many angry women on the streets. And I hope there's an equally number of angry women on the street who would dare speak up for the unborn child in his mother's womb. So, sometimes we're not angry enough. And so I think rather than to try to make life easier for Black people, I think our whole argument and problem is that we don't treat nobody as less than, because of skin color, or more than because of skin color. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Stanton?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, this whole concept of the Karen, I don't think it came from someone's imagination. I think there are definitely Karens out there. There are, all kinds of people who just look for the opportunity to create a situation. And a lot of times it is based on race. But I will also say that I've seen it work in the reverse, where I have worked for the state of Texas, a lot of people, very diverse work group. And I've had Black people say to me specifically in private, well, if they don't want to do it my way, I'm going to say that they're racists. And I'm going to use the race card. And Black people actually using the term race card to get what they want out of a situation at the workplace. So, you know, again, there are people who manufacture situations that aren't necessarily accurate, but I think it goes a little bit in both directions possibly.
Okay. Thank you, Stanton. Greer.
Well, I think the list is about navigating in situations where
Marla.
where you don't actually set the rules. And we do that all the time, regardless of what color you are, just by even with your job position. If you know what kind of boss you have, you know you have to navigate how you're going to approach them to get what you want. And also, I'm going to tell you an incident that I had at my job. I had a boss. She's not my boss at the time. I mean, right now, but she was my boss at the time. And so she had a habit of calling the Black nurses hostile or angry. So she tried that with me. She went, well, Greer, I think you're being hostile. I told her, I said, well, I think you're being hostile. And she went, well, perception is reality. And I was like, well, in what world is your perception more than mine? I'll wait. She didn't have an answer for me. And basically everybody laughed, because if I'm right about something, I'm going to tell you straightforward. And she was new to the job, so she didn't know the culture of the hospital that we worked in, because she came from the private sector. So I warned her about the culture that she's working in, how she can't bring that here. So in me giving her a heads up, a favor that I didn't have to give her, I just let her know some EEOC will be heading your way. That's it.
Thank you, Greer. Next, we have Louise, Leonetta, and then Marla.
I think that this article is something that a lot of people, every white person should read. And I know I've always wanted to be a bit more of an activist as far as racism is concerned. I was like, what can I do? What can I do? But I think getting a different perspective is essential. And I think a lot of these people that are out there are not just nasty a-hole racists. I think a lot of them are just ignorant. There is a whole lot of ignorance and a lack of empathy. And if they understood how difficult and how different life is for a Black person, as far as, you know, having to work their way around these situations in a different way, think about these situations in a different way. I think if they realize that, I really do, you know, they will become more empathetic. And that is what we need. We need more empathy for them to understand, and then to maybe start doing something. So I really do thank you, Nancy, for bringing this, because I do think it's essential. And Larry, it's not condescending. No one's condescending. I don't think. I think these things are true. These things happen. So it's not, I don't know how to put it. I think it is essential for white people to understand that the whole different perspective on life has been happening, you know, and is happening for a large population of this country. That's it.
Thank you, Louise. Leonetta. Leonetta? I don't know if Leonetta took off. Leonetta?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, I had to go get something from my dad. Miriam, you didn't say the name of the school, but I'm gonna say the name of the store that I went into. It was Steinmark. I had a purse, my handbag. I purchased other things and I went to check out. And she went to grab my purse to scan it. I said, "This is mine." She said, "We sell this." I said, "But this is my purse." And I opened it up. This is my purse. And she looked in it. She looked at me and she said, "Oh." So I went to walk out the store. Manager came. "Miss, you're not going to pay for that handbag?" I said, "This is my purse." So I just wanted to tell you my experience.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Leonetta. Marla.
Yeah. I just wanted to first thank everybody for their perspectives and also perhaps address my poor word choice in saying make life easier. That was maybe not the greatest word choice. Really what I am implying is that there is not rescuing that's needed. I don't believe that at all, but I believe that as a white person, I and other white folks, we need to have more awareness and understanding, as Louise said, of different perspectives when it comes to this list of items, and just really be thinking about what folks of color might be experiencing and how it's very, very different from what we might experience. That was it. So apologies if it came out as condescending. That was not the intent. That's it.
Thank you, Marla. Okay, Becky.
Okay, I want to thank for the article because it's, it kind of lays out the kind of things that a person of color faces, even though it might not be exactly like they're talking about.
Phyllis.
I think that that is socially, a lot of that stuff is around us all the time. But it's especially important for me because I'm in a relation, my partner is of color, and it's true, I don't think I've known a lot of, just personally, it doesn't make any difference what color he is. But socially, it's another matter. And I don't think I understood exactly what he was facing, not as articulately as it's expressed in the article that we read. And I'm actually very proud of our town for welcoming my partner the way they have. They stop and speak to him on the street. They've admitted him into their groups and been, socially active with him. And in the sense of conversation, they don't exclude him. That's what I mean by that. And so I guess it could have been otherwise, very definitely. And I'm very lucky that it isn't, that people are not hostile to him in the variety of ways that's expressed in these articles. It's been quite the opposite. So we're going to move into another environment. So I'm now more aware of what the challenges are when you do that. But right here, right now, it's amazingly welcome. And I think, it's the way it should be. So I guess it is. So that's my only comment. Of course, this is Massachusetts. Not that we were that great about slavery, but it is a little easier here than it is when we live in New Orleans. There's more hostility, definitely, in New Orleans than there is here. So.
Thank you, Becky. Phyllis.
Well, New Orleans got some nerve. I'd just like to say that to you, Becky, and your partner, got some nerve, given what went on here all those years ago, without consent. I wanted to say Leonetta's story reminded me, I was at the Magazine Street Antiques Mall, which is one of those stores full of stuff that all different people have for sale. And I was buying two things. One of them was a pink tote bag, which I put on the counter with the other item. And the guy tried not to ring up the pink bag that I was trying to buy. And he told me the amount of the one item and said, oh no, well, I'm buying this too. And he's like, oh, I thought that was yours. So completely opposite. I was trying to buy a bag, and they were like, oh, have it. So again, another example of how a Black person and a white person, and not so far from in location, these two stores that I assuming you were at the Steinmart on Chop. Just again
on Veterans Highway.
Oh, okay. I've never been to that one. So I think I didn't feel like there was stereotyping in this. I thought it was, if anything, stereotyping white people who see a Black person come in a store or walk down their street and react as if some crime is about to happen or already happened. And that's the problem with this article. Not that, the people of color in it have shared their experiences of various micro and macro aggressions, I would say. So thanks, Nancy.
Okay, on time. Okay, the list is open. Oh, Marion. Okay, thank you, Marion. Go ahead. And Bill. And Larry.
I got on mute. Okay, while we were talking, I quickly scanned a list of a listing of sundown towns that were listed in April 2022. I believe we're in the year 2022, and this is April. And if I'm not wrong, April was last month. So here are just 8 of many towns that are considered sundown towns. Ferguson, Missouri. We know Ferguson was currently, not this year, but recently in the last 4 or 5 years in the news. Ferguson, Missouri, Darien, Connecticut, Edina, Minnesota, Grants Pass, Oregon, Kennewick, Washington, Pollock, Louisiana, good old Louisiana, Vidor, Texas, and Vienna, Illinois. That's just 8.
Glenn,
Sorry. And as sundown towns. And I was surprised to see Washington and Minnesota and Oregon listed as sundown places. I was very surprised. You think it's only in the South where people are receiving, Black people are receiving this negative attention. But my goodness, Oregon and Connecticut, gracious goodness.
You got a question?
Oh, you have a question? Okay.
Also, I'm on the list.
Okay.
Tell me, what made these towns sundown towns? What do they do that make them a sundown town, according to what you and I were raised up to believe a sundown town was?
Aggression, negative aggressions against Black people, suspected of suspicious activity which was unwarranted. In some of the cases, the people.
I heard enough. You didn't answer my question. I heard enough.
Well, I think I answered your question. You
said, all right.
What caused?
Too much crosstalk. All right, let's move
true.
on. Let's move on. Okay, we have Bill, Larry, and then Glenn, and then the list will be closed and we'll move on to the wrap up. Okay, Bill.
I think I mentioned this before, but Cleveland County, Oklahoma, which is where the University of Oklahoma is located. Before World War II, there was a sign at the county line that said, "No colored person may spend the night in Cleveland County." And the only reason that sign came down is because the Navy was going to locate 2 naval aviation bases, training bases. And they wanted to have, they made this county take the sound down as a condition to locate the bases there. And it wasn't because the Navy was fully integrated, but a lot of the cooks and kitchen help were Black, and they wanted them to come in too. This is just kind of a random thing. The comment about, as a Black woman, I usually keep my college jacket in the car. Cindy and I were involved in the Welcome Table, which was a group by the mayor's office, the former mayor, to promote conversations across races. And there was a Black woman in our group who had a PhD, and she commented about how this white man mainly ignored her until he learned that she had a PhD, and all of a sudden he got interested in her and started talking to her about, tell me about your PhD, etc. And she thought that was very condescending. She was offended by it, and I don't blame her. The other thing, there was a comment about, I was taught to be overachieving because no one expects a Black woman to be smart and well-spoken. And that kind of applies to the last thing I mentioned. But we've been watching this documentary by Ken Burns on Benjamin Franklin, which I highly recommend. And Benjamin Franklin started out as a slave owner, but in the later years of his life, he realized the evil of it, and he became the president of the Abolition Society of Pennsylvania. And but he helped found a school for freed Black slaves in Philadelphia. And he commented, and he didn't say this as though he was surprised. It was just a matter of fact. He said he found the Black students to be just as intelligent as the white students. And the way he said it was not, oh, I'm surprised that he just said it as a matter of fact. So that's a collection of random thoughts, but I wanted to add those to the conversation. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Bill. We have Larry next.
I think if I'm not mistaken, Louise had made mention that sometimes she searched for answers in terms of what can I do more. And I was a part of the Mayor's Welcome Table too. And that was a young white man in one of our group settings, must have been about 24 years old. And he seemed to have had good intentions, but he too asked the question, you know, what can I do more to make a difference? You know, and while I appreciated his comment, I had to tell him that a lot of your battles is going back to those who you surround yourself with every day, your family, your friends, having the courage to confront the problems of racism. And sometimes we're not dealing with racism so much as we're dealing with evil. Sometimes we don't like to use the term evil, but hatred is evil. It is ungodly. We cover it over with other things and we mask it, but hatred is evil. One of the things Martin Luther King said in a speech, because he got in trouble with some of the radical Blacks at the time, the Stokely Carmichaels and some of the others, they call them Uncle Toms and things of that type. But Martin Luther King said one time that Black power is as bad as white power. So one day, perhaps, you know, we'll cross these color barriers and let love prevail. Because unless that's our whole total purpose, to learn how to love one another, we'll be fighting this battle for another 100 years, another 400 years. And but you know, those of you who join this, you are to be commended. Thank you.
Glenn.
Yeah, I think y'all overreaching with the sundown towns. None of these places y'all talk about in today's history. Now, I ain't talking about what went on 70 years ago or 50 years ago. I'm talking about now. Now, if your basis is they'll get at nighttime, they're gonna start at night giving you tickets. Look, that same town will give you tickets in the daytime. That same town will arrest you in the daylight hours. They don't have to wait till no nighttime. And if it's the basis of staying out of town that they're going to give you tickets, more tickets to Black people. Well, I'm gonna tell you this. In New Orleans, I got so many tickets with those cameras being set in a way that they're gonna cause you to get a ticket by changing the sequence, how fast the light changed from yellow to red. I get them now and I throw them in the garbage can. So no, it's ridiculous. I experienced it before at sundown town. That was St. Bernard Parish back in the late 60s. I experienced it. Bringing a white woman at 1 o'clock in the morning as a taxi fare. And when I got there, the guy didn't want to pay me. So pay me the amount that I'm supposed to get, saying I was cheating him. I grabbed the suitcase and was going to take off with the suitcases if you ain't gonna pay me. And the guy pulled out a gun on me, then he called the police. And thank God for it, that when the police came, a cab driver came with him and told him, well, anyway, when the police came, said, "What's the matter, Frank?" So they know each other person, you know. So they said, "Well, this nigga here trying to cheat my daughter." All right. So the guy had a cab driver with him, a white cab driver with him, and he said, yeah, that's the right price he gave you. And then the sheriff said, "Well, Frank, you got to pay." And that's I was let go, but I could have easily been dumped into the river, you know. So that, I mean, what y'all talking about petty stuff. Y'all ain't talking about no real life and death situations. That's all I got to say.
All right. Thank you, Glenn. We will move on to the wrap up. Okay. And people who have not spoken throughout the discussion have been Marva and Nora, who can get the full 2 minutes. So Nora, would you start?
Sure. So all of the situations that were mentioned in the article are I've been aware of, and that's awful. But the one that was really stuck out to me was the one about not letting your child play with guns, toy guns. And I just thought, oh man, are we still manufacturing toy guns? Is that still a thing? I'm not around young kids or young families so much, but I mean, that just seems, you know, providing the opportunity to for racism and horrible situation. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Nora. Marva?
Thank you for the article, Nancy. I've learned a lot as adolescents. We still have much further to travel in equal justice and equal treatment. And I'm impatient because I won't see it in my lifetime. Thank you.
Thank you, Marva. Next, we'll move on to everyone else from here on out gets 1 minute to give their final thoughts. So we'll start with Marion.
I just want to say thank you for the article. It was very enlightening. And we had a very lively discussion, which I appreciated. So thanks, Nancy, for this great article.
All right, thank you. Bill? Unmute.
Yes, I unmute. When we don't have to, we can go back in history in the Bible. And when Moses came down from the mountain and found the people worshiping the golden calf, I think the golden calf could also represent white supremacy. And they were washing, and Moses, one of the commandments said, love thy neighbor as yourself. And racism goes squarely against that commandment from Moses. So if we follow the 10 commandments, we'd be much better off in our society.
Thank you.
Thanks for the article. It's a great article.
You're welcome. Stanton?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, you know, I think we all have our internal prejudices and our internal fear of other, and we have reactions to things that are foreign to us that other people may not have. But the distinction, I think, between that and what we're talking about as far as the subject of today's discussion is that there's a structure that was in the making for centuries, and the structure is what that critical race theory is about. It's how do you dismantle the structure? We're all going to have our personal little peccadillos and dislikes, but how do you dismantle the structure? And that's the big question.
Okay, thank you, Stanton. Becky?
Yes, I don't know why you say that the towns aren't dangerous, where, I don't know, the police follow cars, and that's very dangerous. The police are poorly trained in many instances and are obviously very racist, and they get involved with drivers in very weird ways and kill them in the end of it. So I would say that there are towns where you really do not want to go at night if you're of color, that you could get killed. So, and that's even true today, very, very sadly. But anyway, thanks for this discussion.
Thank you. Cindy? Unmute.
Valuable discussion. I looked back, I'm 77. I was a child in small town, North Carolina in the, I don't remember the late 40s, but in the 50s and early 60s. It was a very different world, had begun to change, but not very much. So this more comfortable cross-racial interaction is relatively new. I mean, I was in college before I went to school with anyone with brown skin. And that's a strong statement at this point. Then I started teaching in a while after in New Orleans public schools, and it's rather different, wonderfully different but it took some shifting of one's focus. And again, the focus of our whole country needs to shift. And I think it's up to us who have experienced the possibilities to help that happen. Thanks. Enough said.
Thank you. Larry?
Okay, I was going to say something else, but I want to pick up on something Rebecca said about police training. And that seems to be a big cry across the nation. But, you know, when a human being puts a knee on another human being's neck until he's dead. That's not a matter of training. That's a matter of the heart. That's evil. And how do you train people not to be evil? And that's what we're dealing with in this nation. You know, racism for the most part is rooted in the control of the military, the economy, and the politics. And sometimes, regardless of what color you are, you aspire to have power in those three areas. And sometimes it crosses the color line because the Stockholm syndrome sets in. And sometimes those who are generally considered to be less than aspire to be like those who are considered to be more than, whether it's right or wrong, good or bad or evil. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Leonetta.
Wonderful article, Nancy. I really appreciate it. And Stanton, thank you so much for what your comments. I really appreciate it. And I just wanted to add, here in the city of New Orleans, Black trans women not only do they face discrimination, they face murder. I just wanted to let you know that, in case you didn't know it. And Cindy, I think it was Cindy that you had mentioned about teaching here in Jefferson Parish. Children, a Black child can go to from school from 1st to 12th grade and never see a Black teacher. And that's in 2022. So I just wanted to let you know that. Thank you. Nice article.
Thank you, Leonetta. Marla.
I don't have anything to add. I think it was an awesome discussion, and thanks, Nancy, for a great article. And Becky, that dog is giving me life. So cute.
Thank you. Louise.
So, Larry, you said the structures are evil. I totally agree. There is evil in how the structures are structured. And then that takes me to what Stanton said. What we need to do is dismantle the structure, which leads me to what I was saying. The way of doing that is for people to realize that the structures need to be dismantled, right? I mean, people are just carrying on la 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 in their lovely own white way, without realizing that these structures are in place. I think that is a vital part of the education of the ignorant. And subjects like the article today, is perfect to shine the light on that. Yeah, great discussion. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Louise. Phyllis.
I was lost in staring at Becky's cute puppy too. My gosh. If that dog comes to New Orleans, I better get to meet him in person, or her. I just want to say thanks for this article, Nancy. It was interesting and good to hear all the different perspectives that were presented. And Cindy, it's Zion Williamson's mother's house on First Street. I looked it up. And I haven't heard anybody upset about it. So I think I might walk by there when I take my next walk and take some pictures of it. Thanks, Nancy.
All right, thank you, Phyllis. Michelle.
Don't really have much to add, just to say thanks, everybody, for another enlightening discussion. And I look forward to our next one. So hope everybody has a happy Mother's Day on here, who's mother, and everybody else have a great weekend.
Thank you. Glenn. Glenn. Okay, Glenn, that's 3 times. All right, so we're going to move on to Greer. Oh, there he is. All right.
When the white people got to be kind of careful in this audience when they say that nothing much has changed. What have you experienced to know that nothing much have changed? I know there's been great change because I was born in the Jim Crow era. I was a teenager in the Jim Crow era. I know there's tremendous change that has happened. It's only those who got such a scarred psyche that they live in the past and can never see the progress that's happened. They're like a person driving a car 100 miles down the road and looking back, not looking forward to the future. So no, it's been tremendous change, and that's my opinion.
Okay, thank you, Gwen. And Greer.
I think some of these actions that people do are basically defense mechanisms and responses that have been passed on due to a history of trauma and mistreatment by others. And it happened, and I'm sure people in the South and the North both use some of these, whether warranted or not. But what I found interesting is, even beyond this, how we view the North as more benevolent than the South, when the North had slaves like the South had slaves. I mean, was there degrees of brutality? If I stab you with a knife, you're stabbed, whether it goes in 18 inches or 12, you're still stabbed. I don't think all of these actual actions are still used, but I definitely believe some of them are. Thank you.
All right. It is 11:25. Thank everybody for coming. I brought the article because some of the rules or what have you mentioned in the article I've experienced, some of them I have not. I find that you use these rules regardless of where you are in the country. It doesn't really matter. There are sundown towns in the North, just like there are in the South. It's not exclusive to the South or places that I happen to live, or we were stationed in Maine, in Brunswick, Maine for a while. And I mean, it is very rare that you saw a Black person in the state of Maine. I wouldn't necessarily say it was a sundown town, but you were kind of treated like an object of curiosity there. It was definitely an experience to be in Maine, and you felt. But even I went one time to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and I think it was just the area that I was in, where there were two Black people who went to the grocery store. That's only Black people I saw the whole time. So I just think that, you know, these rules or behaviors apply all across the United States. I don't think it really matters what part of the United States that you're in. And I definitely agree with Marla about having empathy for people will definitely help the status of this country a lot. We need to have more empathy for one another. We need to try to understand that sometimes situations exist that we have not experienced. Just because you haven't experienced it does not mean that it doesn't exist. And you need to be open in your mind to things that can occur and happen that haven't happened to you, right? Circumstances that haven't happened to you. So anyway, I think that's it. So we can stop recording